You know, I really don't know how well these are going to perform, but I'm hoping for some good root vegetables in today's harvest. Guten gardening, everybody. You know, for the last month or month and a half or so, we've been growing some root vegetables, some turnips, some radishes in our GreenStalk vertical garden here. We've been growing a couple of other vegetables as well. And today I want to get in there and see what we've got, harvest some of these. They're in pretty good shape, I think. Now, I haven't harvested a single one of these yet. Today is going to be the first time I look down there and I see if the radishes really form good bulbs, if the turnips, you know, just how well they performed. And I haven't checked on purpose. One of the things that we're experimenting with this particular GreenStalk is just the lighting here is just high bay lights. And I've already seen some deficits in just that type of lighting. These 6500K high bay lights aren't that expensive. They provide good light top down, but we're limited a little bit in terms of raising and lowering. I'm also limited for a vertical setup for these lower tiers. So I want to see how well they're performing. I've also noticed something else that's happening with this particular vegetable, and I'm going to take a look at that and see what we need to do to prevent any issues with that in the future. But let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to take this apart as I'm harvesting. I'm going to lift each tier off. And the reason I'm going to do that is pretty simple. You know, when you're harvesting a root vegetable, a root crop, you're going to sling mix everywhere, sling soil everywhere. And I don't want to do that. I want to try to be as neat as possible. So let's go ahead and get these harvested. This is interesting. There's a radish up here beside all these turnips. All right, I'm going to pull this radish out first because these are all turnips, and I'm going to explain these turnips to you. I think they actually do require a little bit of explanation, but I'm going to pull this radish that's in here along with the turnips, trying not to make a mess. It's interesting. Almost looks like there's some damage to this one. I'm not sure why. There's not really any indoor pests that I can think of, but the greens on this are going to be perfectly edible as well, and this will be fine, I'm sure. Looks a little bit like it's been in here a little too long, in my opinion, but I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to come back to the radishes here in a little bit. I want to talk about these turnips. Now, a lot of times when we grow turnips, we grow them for the bulb. I'm going to show you what's developing here, and then, as I said, I'm going to explain it. You see this bottom bulb is not much there for this particular variety. In fact, there's not much to it at all, but that's not actually the point of this particular type of turnip. This is called a 7-top turnip, and the 7-top turnip is actually grown for the leafy greens, and from what I understand, the base here is pretty woody, and I don't know that it would actually be delicious. So while it may not look like much of a turnip harvest, the leaves are the goal for this variety, and look at how deep green. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to taste one of these right now. I want to try these because I don't think a lot of people have necessarily eaten turnip greens, so you might not know what to expect. And certainly for this variety, I don't remember trying the greens before, so this will be a first taste for me as well. Well, these are as fresh as they come because I just harvested this one. Let's see what it tastes like. You know what it reminds me of is a mild wasabi flavor almost, but like super mild. If you ate straight wasabi, you know, it leaves that burning in your nose. I don't get that, but I can taste the turnip and a little bit of spice, but not a lot. Now, this would be excellent to add to a variety of dishes here. I could see this being added in steamed with our other vegetables to add a little bit more flavor. I could see this as a part of a salad. There's a ton of different ways that I think you can eat this. You know, as I said, that's as fresh as these come. And from our research, what we've been told is that these have lots of great nutrients in them. Some vitamin C, vitamin A. Of course, as a leafy green, it's a great source of fiber. And that being the case, you know, I could harvest off some of these bigger outer leaves. So we see a little bit of yellowing here on these leaves. They're not all 100% perfect. I won't be eating that leaf, but I could just harvest off these plants, you know, a little bit at a time and try to let the plant keep growing. Because if we take a look deep down in the center here, let's take a look right in the middle of the plant. Reminds me a little bit of kale in this way. I've still got new growth coming in from the center of this plant, so I could continue to get leaves as this grows. Again, I'm not trying to harvest this for the root part for the bulb part. If I were doing that, I wouldn't want to leave this end too long, but I can do that. I can harvest some of these beautiful green leaves off of here and let it continue to grow, or I can pull these out and start something new. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to harvest some of these bigger plants here, and then I'm going to leave, because I planted so many of them close together, because again, my goal wasn't to get the roots to bulb up. So I'm going to leave some of the smaller plants in here to keep growing. All right, let's take a look at our radishes. And as I said, I'm just going to disassemble this. There's our radish from the top tier. Now with these radishes, I'm not 100% sure what varieties I have growing in here. And the reason I'm not sure which radishes are in here, let me see if I can, there it is. I'll grab this label here. These are Guten gardening radishes from previous year's crops. So I'm not 100% sure which ones. I just took some of the seeds because I didn't label them at the time. But let's see if we've got some development here. Ooh, of the radishes, the bulbing part of the radishes is beautiful. Look at that. Now I'm noticing this with quite a few of them, that there's this part of the radish bottom here is more elongated than what I've seen when growing outside. And I'm wondering, you see that actually consistently. Oh, there's one that tiny little plant here that didn't have enough space, but I'm wondering if that has something to do with the lighting, or the way it started. I'm not 100% sure what that's all about, why it looks like that, but what I can tell you is the radishes themselves look fantastic. I mean, the beautiful, nice, deep red color here. I'm going to show you something else. Now, just like the turnips, I think a lot of times people just focus in on the root part, that bulb at the bottom, but these greens are also fantastic, nutritious, good sources of those vitamins A, C. They are also good for fiber as well, and we can eat them in much the same way as we do those turnip leaves. I'm going to go ahead and taste one of these and let you know what I think. Now, radish leaves I have definitely eaten multiple times before. I've made this very clear. I think with the radish, it's actually not about the amount of time it's in the ground, it's about the variety for spiciness. In fact, I don't believe that radishes actually get spicier if you leave them in the ground too long. I think they might get woodier, but it's not about that. The leaves themselves tend to be a milder taste than the root, but let's go ahead and eat this one and I'll let you know. Yeah, it's immediate, that radish taste, but not spicy, not overly spicy. This is another one of those greens that, again, you add to other greens. You can eat them by yourself, by themselves, I should say. It's absolutely delicious, but it would be there to add a little bit more flavor to some other greens. Like I could see eating this with some lettuce and some Swiss chard, and this all combined, that would be fantastic. So this is a really delicious additional crop. And for me, when I harvest these, I don't leave the greens with the radish. I typically put the radishes in the fridge to try to keep them a little bit longer, but I cut the greens off and I get those preserved right away. And for me, the preservation of this, we eat them pretty quickly, so I would say the refrigerator is just fine. I rinse them off, put them in the refrigerator. If we're not gonna eat them right away, sometimes I'll put them in the freezer and we eat them pretty quickly. But that's an additional amazing harvest. Now, I'm going to show you this, and I want to make this very clear that this is an issue that I just saw starting up, because it wasn't all winter long. We haven't had this problem. And here we go. Now, so far, I'm only noticing this problem on my radishes, but if it's in one place, it can really spread, and you can see it right here. You know what that is? Those are aphids. Now, the first thing I'm going to do with these aphids is I'm going to go ahead and rinse off the leaves. The aphids themselves aren't going to make this inedible, but again, they spread so quickly. You start seeing one, you got to really get in there and take care of the issue. We didn't even bring in any plants from outside this time around, and yet here they are again. But it seems to me like they're just really tough to fully get rid of once they've been introduced indoors like they have the last couple seasons. But I will say that our experiences with ladybugs and releasing the ladybugs in our indoor growing space has made such a profound difference that I think the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get some more ladybugs. Again, I just need to wash these off and I'll be able to eat them. But it's not something fun to have to deal with. And any kind of pest infestation is not something that you really want to have to worry or spend your time on. But at least we're still getting some really nice results out of these radishes. Some really nice greens as well. And as I said, it looks like I caught this infestation pretty early on, because even though this is a little bit smaller, I would say most of the plants here don't have any of those aphids. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out some of these bigger ones. You can see again they were planted really close together. I'm going to pull out some of the ones that have bulbed up even a little bit, because I can eat those, and I'll leave the smaller ones, try to disturb their roots a little less. Oh, see, knocked them over. But disturb their roots a little bit less, but leave these in here to continue growing. All right, let's take a look at the tier below. I've gone ahead and pulled off that top, the radishes there, what's left of them, and you can see our sugar beets, some really nice leaves here, and I planted these in groups, but you can see the issue. Here on this side, there's very little development. On this side, there's more development, so that's a lighting problem, and that's what I was talking about. You know, those lights don't necessarily do a good job of being consistent the whole way around. So I think what I want to do is move this tier up. I'm not going to really be able to change too much of the lighting right now, but I'm going to move this tier up and see what difference that makes over the upcoming weeks. Let's take a look at some of the other GreenStalk vegetables we have growing right now. Do you see this? This is a mix of different types of Swiss chard. Look at that beautiful coloration. I love the red stems on these. This is some really healthy Swiss chard. I absolutely adore the taste. I think the flavor of Swiss chard is one of my favorites for leafy greens for sure. Oh, this is beautiful. Again, I could harvest some of this right now. In fact, I will. Let's have a bite of this Swiss chard too. Swiss chard is so interesting. Actually, growing up, I never ate it raw. I only ever ate it steamed. I absolutely loved it. Go after those green leafy vegetables. I'm telling you, the health benefits are there. This is fantastic. For me, the Swiss chard is best when it's steamed. I don't know, it's just something, because maybe it's because I grew up with it, but steamed with some pepper steamed in with it, whew, so good. And you know we're not going to have an indoor garden without kale. And I've got a couple of different varieties here. This is our lacinato or our dino kale growing as well. This is some red Russian kale. So basically between these two tiers alone, we've got months worth of greens growing in here as well. Oh, and there's one more thing I wanted to show you. Even though this is growing in a slightly different area, these are our Tiny Tim tomatoes. And for those of you who haven't grown Tiny Tim tomatoes, there's a little dwarf cherry tomato, and they only get about 14 inches tall. And they are looking pretty good. It looks like I got a little deficiency here. You can see the leaves need a little bit of help. I think I'm gonna move these and try to get that solved. But I'm super excited for these cherry tomatoes, which we should see in the next month or so. Well, I had to move things around a little bit to be able to display this more effectively for you, because limited space means limited movement, and some angles just aren't great. But you've seen some of the greens that we have growing in here in our indoor space, growing vertically. In the case of what I showed you today, I've got quite a bit that I'm now going to be able to eat, preserve, etc. over the next couple of weeks. Well, the eating part anyway, over the next couple of weeks. I'm actually going to get them preserved right away, because with those root crops, you don't want to leave them, certainly in any kind of heat, but you don't want to leave them out and unprocessed for any period of time, because they'll wilt. And really, the best vegetables are the freshest vegetables. You're going to get the most out of them. Man, this Swiss chard looks so good, don't you think? It's got me hungry. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this quick harvest video. I know I didn't show you everything that's in here, but we showed you, I think, a good bit, and showed you what you can do in a pretty small amount of space. And again, the lighting here under these high bay, they're producing okay. Are those radishes perfect? Absolutely not. We'd love some bigger radishes. Part of that's probably on me too, just making sure I'm taking the best care possible. But I'd say we actually got some pretty good results. And I definitely have to take care of those aphids ASAP. But folks, if you enjoyed today's harvest video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.